This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Let's keep it going here, and let's talk about that Warrior Vader match from that show. Quote, they had done 20-second squashes all weekend, somewhat because Vader had a bad hip, and more because Warrior's shoulder is messed up. I guess because the crowd was so big, or because Hellwig was unappreciative, or because of all the pins are getting so much press in Japan or whatever. But Vader took his clotheslines and then walked out. As he got to the back, officials basically told him if he didn't walk back in, he might as well walk all the way back to Colorado and not come back. He got back in the ring and did the match, but ended up walking out again for the count out rather than the pin. Right now, there are no plans to push him until the fall, and they want him to drop weight first. So we've talked about Vader in the archives, but this is some old school stuff here, is it not?
Yeah, Vader was Leon was very gifted, as we know, and I was always a big proponent of Leon's because I was one of the guys that was responsible for bringing he and Hansen into WCW back in the day. So I love that big monster heel persona.
Yeah,
but Leon's one of those guys that was easily convinced that if I do jobs, it's going to hurt me in Japan.
right.
Screw Japan. I mean, come on, God damn. Oh, but Japan this, Japan that, and if you want to protect your money, you shouldn't have come here. If that's a concern of yours, because you know that you're not going to get booked or signed to a contract that says I never lose.
No.
So Leon's lucky that night he did get fired. Really is. And a lot of bookers in less tenuous times would have said, "We'll see, you're done. You if you can't lose, you can't win. So you figure that out." So I think if we hadn't had the WCW thing going on and bubbling, Leon might have been out, and that would have been a terrible loss because he was a killer heel and it got over. And all that good stuff. But the Japanese influence of some of those guys, they've actually believed that losing in a house show, so for example, in Rosemont, would be detrimental to their Japanese career. I find that absurd. I find it absurd. Are we kidding each other? So, but Leon was lucky. He got lucky that night. And I'm not saying that his match was good or he didn't have reason or for being that defiant.
Sure.
Warrior wasn't easy to work with, but on paper, from a promoter standpoint, Vader versus Warrior has some sizzle.
It's interesting though, he leaves WCW because he's probably, well, a lot of reasons, but one of the things I'm sure is he's frustrated with the way he's booked against Hogan. Now here he is doing a string of matches where he's losing to the Warrior in a fraction of the time.
Yeah, well, I guess I would say to Leon, and I had a lot of heart-to-hearts with Leon over the years. And I was the guy that picked him up at the airport with his son, Jesse, when Jesse was a high school senior coming in from Colorado to visit the Sooners. He had committed to UCLA and they flew in. Leon, as I found out in hindsight, had lost his driver's license. His license suspended. So good old JR goes and picks him up at the airport and takes him to Norman from Oklahoma City, about 20 minutes. And then he decommitted to UCLA on his visit and committed to OU. He was the top-rated high school center in America.
Wow.
Jesse White was like a 5-star guy. And I always liked Jesse. Jesse's doing well in business. Lives in Dallas area, I think. And a good kid, really good kid.
Friend of the show. I don't know if you can see above me, but that's Vader's last mask and Vader's boots. And Jesse saw what we had going on here in my backdrop, and he didn't sell them to me. He loaned them to me and said, "Hey, can we show off some of my dad's stuff?" Or I asked, "Hey, can we show off some of your dad's stuff?" And right above me there, one of my favorites, Vader's last mask and boots.
Yeah. Leon could be a pain in the ass, but I loved him.
Yeah.
He was our pain in the ass. And I just remember what Watts taught me back beginning, athletic big men draw money.
Yeah.
And the monster heel is an imperative element. And then you look for a booker to have at his disposal, and looking at the fact that, Shawn Michaels was always going to be around 215, 220 pounds. Leon was not going to lose a lot of weight, whether we wanted him to or not. He was a huge human being.
Right.
So now you got that great that advantage, size advantage, for your big monster heel coming after the gallant, brave, and true babyface. So it was logical. But Leon overthought, as I said, a lot of guys, not just Leon. The Japanese did a good job of selling them that, don't do jobs, don't do too many jobs, just DQ, countouts, all those things. So so I just say sometimes, well, that's not what's best for the company. We need winners and losers here. So if you can't lose, then how can we justify sending you out there and you've beaten everybody, even though you won't reciprocate? It made no sense. So that's kind of where we were there. That's why this King of the Ring has so many unique twists and turns, and how those twists and turns equated to major happenings going forward.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.